The Deutsche Kammerphilharmonie Bremen and conductor Paavo Järvi, musical allies on a mission to create a new Beethoven. They want their version of the Beethoven symphonies to suit the 21st century. They call it the Beethoven Project.
Why another cycle? Who needs another cycle? We will always need another cycle.
Bremen in northern Germany. From here, the Deutsche Kammerphilharmonie is conquering the musical world. Paavo Järvi has been the orchestra's artistic director since 2004, and since then almost anything seems possible. Sold-out concerts, resounding world tours, and acclaimed recordings. The next milestone, performances of all 9 Beethoven symphonies at the Beethovenfest in Bonn.
When I met them and I heard them play Beethoven, it became clear that this sounds how I want it to sound.
It took years until we were able to produce our characteristic sound quickly.
At this point, a different mood suddenly comes in. A fateful mood, as I see it.
Beethoven was a humanist. He did not compose only for a concert audience. He had a message for the whole of humanity.
And his message is being heard around the world. The Beethoven Project spells success for the orchestra.
30 years ago, when they started, the prospects were not good. It was only going to happen if people believed in the impossible.
Our views on how things should sound in Beethoven symphonies coincided. And the willingness to go deeper and find the little details and obsess on every detail, which I love about this orchestra because they are obsessive, like I am.
Every 5 years, the Estonian capital Tallinn plays host to a major music event, the Laulupidu, the Estonian Song Festival. Paavo Järvi also likes to get involved. It's a reason to return to his hometown.
Somehow I belong here. At the same time, I haven't been here for very long permanently. So always coming here, there's a little bit of nervousness almost. There's a ritual. For some reason, I never lose the luggage, but every time I come to Estonia, my luggage is always lost. And today is the same thing. I simply don't have a karma for the luggage in Estonia, but it feels special. It feels, already looking from the window and seeing the landscape, you feel, oh yeah, this is all. Okay.
His formal clothes have gone missing, along with his luggage, so he has to go and buy some more. This evening, Járvi has been invited to a reception with the President of Estonia. Tallinn is where Paavo Järvi's musical career began in the 1970s, first as a percussionist, then as a conductor. His father, the conductor Neeme Järvi, taught him a great deal. These days, father and son are well-known figures. not at all out of place among Estonia's celebrities.
Paavo is someone who I think Estonians are quite proud of, since he, like a few other people, has actually grown up, become an adult abroad, but has never forgotten Estonia and is very active in Estonian culture.
Paavo Järvi is a cultural ambassador for his country. Estonia molded him, and not only as a musician.
The type of charm that Estonia has is slightly hidden. You go to Spain or Italy or Greece or South America and you have this incredible life and excitement. Here, everything on the surface looks kind of calm and nice and quiet. There is another current underneath, but there is certain charm in being rather low-key. I grew up like that, and I actually identify with it, and I like it. I love this old town because it's hidden. There are all those little hidden passages, and if you know your way around, you can go from most busy street to the quietest street.
Estonia has had a turbulent history. For many centuries it was occupied by foreign powers. The traces are still visible today.
This was headquarters of KGB. See those windows down there? They're all cemented. A lot of Estonians died there. They were tortured and killed. This is the relic of a Soviet terrorism and Soviet occupation. And this is a building where you knew that if you were asked to come here, you might never come back.
Opposition to the occupiers was often expressed in music. During Soviet times, demonstrators would sing songs banned by the communists. Estonia has been independent again since 1991, when this nation liberated itself in what became known as the Singing Revolution. The Song Festival begins with a street parade on the edge of Tallinn. The Laulupidu, which lasts several days, has been celebrated since 1869.
The song festivals have always, in a way, been political. In a way, you can say political or nationalistic, but it's all connected. During the free Estonia, it symbolizes unity and freedom. During the occupation, it symbolized a certain amount of resistance and defiance. It's a symbol of Estonia, really, Estonian culture, and I don't know anywhere in the world where something like this happens. It's peaceful, it's full of joy, and it's about music, but it's also about being together and insisting on your own language, on your own culture, on your own self-determination.
Paavo is Estonian, and first and foremost, for us, he will be Estonian conductor, and we are very proud of him. I think everybody in Estonia, because he is one of the few of us who has made it to the world. And although he left the country in fairly early age, I think he was 18 or something, so he still remembers very well how we were living, and he remembers, he shares our culture very, very closely.
The opening ceremony of the festival. 24,000 singers and 80,000 spectators. Paavo Järvi is one of 28 conductors performing on this day.
music unites everybody here, but actually it's not strictly about music. One wouldn't necessarily always worry about the interpretation here. When I work with Kammerphilharmonie, it's all about music. It's about nothing else but really doing music as well and as deeply as and as concentrated as possible. Here, it's somehow you come here you because you want to be part of that event.
Some hours later, the rain is pouring down, but that can't stop this performance of the Pilgrim's Chorus from Wagner's Tannhäuser. Six male choirs and the Estonian National Symphony Orchestra, conducted by Paavo Järvi.
Dirigent Paavo Järvi.
One of the things about the Eighth that one cannot deny is that it is certainly the most brilliant example of Beethoven's sort of mad humor. It's a kind of a grotesque joke of a genius.
This passage doesn't look complicated on the page, but it becomes a challenge because you feel as if you're playing the same notes over and over again and you have to articulate them precisely.
Töne spielt, die man sehr kurz, sehr deutlich artikulieren soll.
I mean, that's the great Beethoven who has given us the Fifth Symphony, the Seventh Symphony, Eroica, comes up with this absurd little piece of music, but it's a genius piece of music at the same time. It's almost profane, you know. You have this. Bam! What kind of a 4-year-old would make that kind of a joke? But it is fantastic at the same time. It is fantastic because you can see something already is not right. There is something in this music that is bordering on insanity. That's the only time when you can actually sort of hear or understand that he was deaf. That's the only time that I really, in any of his pieces, that I think that's probably written by somebody who couldn't hear, you know? You know?
One part of the Beethoven project is reaching its conclusion at the orchestra's partner school in Bremen. A side room has been transformed into a sound studio, where the mixing is being done for the CD of the Ninth Symphony.
Oh, just tiny bit more. That's maybe too much. That's too much.
I already take it back. I'll take the first one back a little bit less.
Paavo Järvi and sound engineer Everett Porter are putting the finishing touches to their recording of Beethoven's Last Symphony.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. It's sort of superhuman, but that's good. In the life of a conductor, that's a big milestone. For me, that's a big deal. Good, works. I've made a lot of recordings, over 50, I would think. But probably the 9 Beethoven symphonies, this is the Bible for us. This is the one that you want to make sure that really you're proud of.
The series of CDs of Beethoven's symphonies is complete, but the orchestra's Beethoven project continues. At the Beethovenfest in Bonn, they are to perform all 9 symphonies in 4 days. There too, the climax will be the 9th.
All Beethoven symphonies are difficult, but the 9th is a kind of a landmark. It's not a symphony anymore. It's a kind of a legend, if you will. You know, this is every little kid. My child, the first thing that she learned to play on the piano with one finger was boom, 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 boom. Definitely this piece doesn't follow the ordinary symphonic conventions. I mean, it is something that you already know because he uses choruses and he soloist, that this is somehow not the traditional symphony. It doesn't have the same structure.
We didn't include this piece in our repertoire until rather late because it requires so many instruments as well as the choir.
What we try to do with this music is to try to find the smallest possible but convincing way of making the point come across.
I think of it like this. When we reach the 9th, I get 4 symphonies packed into one. The first movement is so long, it's like a little symphony in itself.
There is this moment of complete trepidation. Nobody hears anything. And you have this... It's an unusual beginning, and it is one of those moments when you start feeling that out of nothing something great can come. It is for me always a great relief when the first movement is over, because I feel that the first movement takes up so much energy, and mental energy and physical energy, that if you don't calculate it correctly, you might not have enough strength to do the rest of the symphony.
Das ist meine Lieblingsstelle, weil sie einerseits...
This is my favourite part, because it's supposed to be very expressive, but also very quiet. It's an expressiveness that's not directed outwards, but which stays inside.
Am Ende jeder Phrase...
At the end of each phrase it says morendo, which means dying. The sound should die away, and out of this dying sound a new seed germinates, and a new melody grows.
It becomes too obvious, too early. It doesn't sound natural, yeah? Thank you very much. Bravo.
All things in their place?
The rehearsals in Bremen are over. Now the orchestra heads to the Beethovenfest in Bonn. It's a 3.5-hour journey by rail, a relatively unspectacular trip, but for the musicians, it's the beginning of a marathon. A Beethoven marathon.
For me personally, it's a real tour de force.
It takes you to your limits. If we were doing it over 2 weeks, we would have time to recover. But to play all this in 3 or 4 days is like running a marathon or doing several sprints one after the other.
It is tough, but when you get to the summit, after the last note of the last symphony, it's great to look back and realize what you've achieved.
I think we're all keen to play the symphonies again, and it's especially good to play them in Bonn, in Beethoven's town. That's great.
The first rehearsal in the Beethoven Halle in Bonn. Once again, the orchestra and their conductor are working on the 9th Symphony. The Beethovenfest in Bonn is one of Europe's most renowned music festivals. This year, the Deutsche Kammerphilharmonie Bremen and their Beethoven Symphony Cycle are the main attraction. Coming up in the final part of the Beethoven project, Paavo Järvi visits the house where Beethoven was born.
I always struggled with an idea that Beethoven was actually a human being.
And the Kammerphilharmonie begins its Beethoven marathon. 9 symphonies in 4 days at the Beethovenfest in Bonn. The climax is reached when the orchestra plays Ludwig van Beethoven's 9th Symphony. In the next part of the Beethoven Project.